Sometimes the most subtle film scores can also be the most incredible moments when we start breaking it apart. And that's what I've realized about the music from A New Hope as the Empire boards the Tantive IV. This is Star Wars Music Analysis. I mentioned before how the music gets softer as we move from the space battle outside and into the hallways of the Tantive IV. This helps in two ways. First, it allows us to feel that we are inside now and that we wouldn't hear everything going on outside quite as well. Actually, wouldn't we hear it better since, space is a vacuum and everything?
That's not how the Force works.
Oh, right, sorry.
Oh, really? You're cold?
Anyways, it also helps since now we start to hear dialogue between our first two characters, C-3PO and R2-D2, and music always has to be brought down when there is dialogue occurring. It's one of the trickiest things as a film composer to know how to score music underneath the talking voice. What we actually hear in this moment though is pretty remarkable, even if nobody knew it yet. We continue to hear this incessant war march just like before. I mentioned before how this rhythmic ostinato is inspired by Holst Mars and would go on to represent the Galactic Empire. However, over this slow driving rhythm, we hear the theme from the very beginning, this one. This is the Rebel theme and comes to represent the rebels in everything heroic. So, a minute into this film, Williams has already given us two contrasting themes that represent two contrasting factions, and then gone on to use them simultaneously. And the reason I think this is genius is because it perfectly represents the conflict and the friction between these two warring factions that are both fighting for their own beliefs in this moment. The high strings here certainly make the Rebel Alliance feel frailer in this moment than the powerful Empire as well, which they are. But how cool is this simultaneous thematic moment so early on in the first film? As 3PO stops talking, we hear the music get louder again, building suspense toward the moment when the stormtroopers will breach the door, and now we can really hear these two conflicting themes. As the Devastator pulls the Tantive IV into its hangar, the Imperial music takes over the Rebel theme, just like the Star Destroyer taking over the blockade runner. Then there's this moment of silence to the music as Williams simply lets us hear the sounds of the ship. As the stormtroopers breach the door, we start to hear these fast scales in the strings and woodwinds along with flails, which foreshadows the upcoming change in movement. The more violent attacks of the xylophone and brass imitate the fighting of these two forces. The Rebel theme fights through a few more times, and check out this subtle moment here where R2 messes up the music. So the Rebel theme is moving from an F to D at this point, but as R2 pops out, he pivots his dome and the sound from this creates a C sharp, which is only a half step away from the D we hear. It's this really strange relationship that almost sounds like some sort of alarm, but it's actually R2-D2 just being tone deaf, I guess. And then we get the big entrance, the moment when everyone at the premiere knew to boo, the moment we first see the dreaded Darth Vader. But completely missing at this moment is Vader's actual theme, because this hadn't been composed until the next movie, Empire Strikes Back. At the time, nobody would have noticed, but in retrospect, we're missing one of the most famous leitmotifs in all of Star Wars for the first entrance of the most famous character. To me, this has 50th anniversary remake written all over it. I mean, with all of the other things that have been tweaked over the years, this would be incredible to hear Vader's theme just open up right here, and then we would always know that this was the music of this figure. In fact, how has this not already been done? It wouldn't be the first time that they've changed the music in the movies, and you wouldn't even need to do a rewrite. Just take it from somewhere else. But for the time being, we get this powerful augmented chord in the brass. The idea of an augmented chord does fit pretty well here. It's a chord that, to our ears, has been stretched beyond a major chord with a raised fifth, and it always gives the sense of feeling unstable. By not following this up with anything else and just letting that unmoving bass drone turn into the closest thing we get to a resolution, Williams leaves us with a heightened sense of tension in this moment and a lack of hope as we see our villain for the first time. He then pulls the music away and we hear that evil breathing of the Dark Lord for the first time. Williams will do this throughout all of the movies, where he builds us up to a climactic moment right before the music cuts out or before a scene change. In doing so, he keeps the drama going forward a great deal more than if each scene or music cue felt like it had a stable ending. Notice how even after the chord ends, the effect of its tension can still be felt in the hallway. As Vader walks away though, the brass pick up again and march with him, but then a quick shift as we move back to R2-D2. This time with the next new character, Princess Leia. And while we know now that this is the Force theme, this was originally meant to be Obi-Wan Kenobi's theme, and so the reason that we're hearing it in this moment is because of the foreshadowing of the message that Leia just made being for old Ben himself. This is met by Leia's theme as we physically see her for the first time. The music for this entire shot has pulled back from the fighting with far more lush lines in the strings and woodwinds. As R2 rolls away with Leia's message, her theme follows along.
Wait a minute, where are you going?
And then we have a sudden shift as we jump back to the military figures. We pick up with Vader choking Captain Antilles, and the music here serves two possible purposes. First, it's high strings, double reeds, and muted brass. All of these instruments in some way have to cut off sound that gives us the sense of the music being choked off. The music also seems to sway a little bit, almost as if it's dizzy, and so it becomes a perfect representation for how Captain Antilles likely feels in this moment, choked and dazed. However, we're also going to hear this music again later on Tatooine, and I'll talk more about it at that point, since that really is where I feel like this music belongs. And if that's the case, and this music belongs on Tatooine, like I feel it does, then Williams is foreshadowing where we'll be going next, while also answering Vader's question. Listen, the music cue begins just as Vader asks, "Where are those transmissions you intercepted?"
What have you done with those plans?
It's literally telling Vader what he wants to know. Just listen to the music, Vader.
We're on a diplomatic mission.
Here's another one of Williams' patented build-ups and quick drop-offs. The music immediately gets quiet then as the stormtroopers look for whatever they're looking for here. As Leia reveals herself, her theme comes back in the flute, a very deceptively beautiful instrument for what happens next. But as she fires, the music shifts to something far more violent, and then as she's stunned, the music comes down quickly. As R2 and C-3PO debate getting in the escape pod or not, we get more foreshadowing of the music for the desert planet of Tatooine that's to come next.
Hey, you're not permitted in there. It's restricted. You'll be deactivated.
And just as the music became stifled as we entered the Tantive IV, the register and orchestration become far more expansive as they leave and look back on the ships from the vastness of space. As Leia is marched to Vader, we again hear those low double-reeded bassoons, threatening the impending choking that Leia could suffer. Fragments of what will also later be part of the Imperial March, and its secondary theme also comes into play here as well. At the end of the scene, we hear one more augmented chord as Williams again leaves us in suspense and full of tension without a resolution. But let me know what you think. Did you ever realize that there was so much foreshadowing and subtle moments happening in this scene? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and tell me if I've missed anything in this episode. And before you go, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the music of the galaxy far, far away. And as always, may the be with you.